Shabbat Shalom. Our scripture reading for today is Esaias chapter 43, verses 1 through 3. Thus said Yahweh that created you, O Jacob, and he that formed you, O Israel, fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by your name. You art mine. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and through the rivers, they shall not overflow you. When you walk through the fire, you shall not be burned, neither shall the flame kindle upon you. For I am Yahweh your Elohim, the Holy One of Israel, your Savior.
Shabbat Shalom, family. Our selection today, No Trouble at the River.
Sometimes I feel mistreated, and sometimes I feel defeated, and sometimes I feel like I should just give up. But when I think about that old Jordan, one day gotta cross that chilly old Jordan, and I don't want no trouble when it's time for me to cross to the other side. Sometimes I feel mistreated, and sometimes I feel defeated, and sometimes I feel like I should just give up. But when I think about that old Jordan, one day I got to cross to the other side. I don't want no.
I don't want no trouble at the
I said I don't want no.
I don't want no trouble at the
I don't want no.
I don't want no trouble at
I said I don't want no.
I don't want no trouble at
I said I don't
want no trouble at the river. I don't want no trouble at the river. I don't want no
I said I don't want no trouble.
I don't want no trouble at the
I don't want no
river.
trouble.
I don't want no trouble at
Please
the
give me no
river.
trouble.
No trouble
I don't need no trouble.
want no trouble at the river. I don't want no trouble when it's time for me to cross the other side.
The oracles of the UCI. 1 Peter chapter 4, verses 7 through 11. But the end of all things is at hand. Be you therefore sober, and watch unto prayer. And above all things have fervent love among yourselves, for love shall cover the multitude of sins. Use hospitality one to another without grudging. As every man has received the gift, even so minister the same one to another as good stewards of the manifold grace of Elohim. If any man speak, let him speak as the oracles of Elohim. If any man minister, let him do it as of the ability which Elohim gives, that Elohim in all things may be glorified through Yahshua the Mashiach, to whom be praise and dominion forever and ever. Amen. Ephesians chapter 4, verses 29 through chapter 5 and verse 4. Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use of edifying, that it may minister grace unto the hearers. And grieve not the Holy Spirit of Elohim, whereby you are sealed until the day of redemption. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice. And be you kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as Elohim for Yahshua's sake has forgiven you. Be you therefore followers of Elohim, as dear children, and walk in love, as the Mashiach also have loved us, and has given himself for us an offering and sacrifice to Elohim for a sweet-smelling savor. But fornication, and all uncleanness, or covetousness, let it not be once named among you as becomes saints. Neither filthiness, nor foolish talking, nor jesting, which are not convenient, but rather giving of thanks. Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verses 1 and 2. Keep your foot when you go to the house of Elohim, and be more ready to hear than to give the sacrifice of fools, for they consider not that they do evil. Be not rash with your mouth, and let not your heart be hasty to utter anything before Elohim. For Elohim is in heaven, and you upon earth, therefore let your words be few. Exodus chapter 23, verses 20 and 21. Behold, I send an angel before you, to keep you in the way, and to bring you into the place which I have prepared. Beware of him, and obey his voice. Provoke him not, for he will not pardon your transgressions, for my name is in him. Revelations chapter 3, verses 20 through 22. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him and will sup with him, and he with me. To him that overcomes will I grant to sit with me in my throne, even as I have also overcame and am sat down with my Father in his throne. He that has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says unto the churches.
All right, Shabbat Shalom,
Shabbat Shalom.
which is peace on the Yahweh's holy Sabbath day. Welcome to another holy convocation that Yahweh has enjoined unto us here in this body of Yahshua. When we consider just the lyrics of the song, I don't want any trouble when I go to the other side. We have to consider that in the spiritual context. We have things that we're going to encounter here in this life. And a lot of times, we want to be separated from all troubles. But the issue with that is the things that we don't deal with on this side, we're going to have to deal with on the other side. See, all things that we kind of defer. And that's the thing about getting, especially when you're young and you first get a credit card, you find out that they got deferred payments. So you say, oh my God, I can just swipe it, right? So you swipe it and you get the item, right? But you hadn't paid for it. Your account still looked the same, but you got this nice polo shirt. This is amazing. It's amazing. It's wonderful. So you get it and you realize, well, wait a minute, they're going to let me do it again. And then you do it again, and then you do it again, and then you do it again. Well, it looks like you're getting all these things, but you have to pay for that on the other side. Sooner or later, that bill gonna come, and when that bill comes, it's got interest. Now, not only are you paying for the item, you're paying for the time that you were allowed to not pay for the item. I'm going to need you to marinate on that right there for a minute. So you got the issue, and then add in the time that you were not charged for the issue. Sooner or later, you start to realize as you start to become more adult in your dealings, you say, you know what, now I want to pay for this on this side. There's certain things you sit down and you say, you know what, I'm going to use the charge card on this one, but I ain't using the charge card on that one. Why? No. Matter of fact, then you learn certain charge card. Wait a minute. This one got 12 months, no interest. Wait a minute. This is my man right here. This is my buddy. I need to use this one. Because see, now I get a longer time to not pay for that stretch out. See, we never consider that there's the item and then there's the time that you didn't have to pay for the item. You're paying for all of that. See, the things that we don't deal with on this side, you got to deal with when you wake up. None of us are more righteous than the other. We're not more righteous than anybody else out there in that street. The only difference is we trying to deal with our stuff on this side. See, when I grew up, they had this saying, God don't like ugly. But you got to understand, he don't like your ugly either. It ain't no more less ugly because you did it. It's the same ugly when somebody else tried to be slick. It's the same ugly when you try to be slick. So don't think your ugly is less slicker. The question is whether or not we're going to deal with it on this side, or we going to keep letting that interest accrue and then have Yahshua hand us a bill. A bill, my friend, that neither one of us can possibly pay. We ain't got enough in our accounts to just let things accrue without trying to pay for something on this side. You got to try to pay for something on this side. You just sit there and let those things accrue. Then sooner or later, you're going to have to file spiritual bankruptcy. And now you got to hope that Yahshua don't return in your grace period after you file. We have to consider these things in a natural and a spiritual. Don't just hear the words of those songs and just say, okay, there's this Jordan that we have to cross. In the book, it says that there's a gulf fixed between the dead and the living. So understand that there's a physical part of those lyrics and there's a spiritual part. Where do we stop listening? That's a question that we have to ask ourselves. Now, today we're going to get into some things concerning the word and the various divisions that there were in the word. Today's sermon is entitled The Divided Word, the sects of the Second Temple period. There are a lot of times that people refer to things and they'll say the Jews. And you can almost tell the level of someone's knowledge about something when they just stop there. When you allow somebody to just say the Jews, my immediate rebuttal, which Jews we talking about? When you answer the question that way, let me tell you something. The person's next step is going to be different. Because you said one thing, which Jews we talking about? And we're going to get into that so that you'll have some basis for that statement. But that's the statement that you need to be making after today. And we're going to give you basis for that statement. Let's begin today's sermon in Matthew chapter 16. And we're going to read verses 1 through 12.
Matthew chapter 16 and verse 1. The Pharisees also with the Sadducees came, and tempting desired him that he should show them a sign from heaven.
Now, right off the rip, there are two different groups of Jews. The very first verse here, the Pharisees also with the Sadducees. Now, these groups don't believe in the same things. They are what you would call denominations of Judaism. People always want to talk about denominations of Christianity, and they don't understand that they're denominations of Judaism. Here go two of them in verse 1. But you'll learn something that sometimes people have what I call that Afghanistan love, where they don't like each other, but they more so don't like you. So they will gather together to get rid of you. Now, once there's no longer you in the picture, they're going to go back to killing each other. They only believe that they're together because they have a common enemy. Watch how, the people who don't work out, watch how they all gather together. And you look and it's funny because you can look at their fake posts where they're smiling, and this one don't like that one. That one don't like this one. This one don't like the whole group over here. That one don't like this one. But what? They're gathered together over the basic hatred of something else. So they're gathered together in hatred. Here you have a gathering of hatred against Yahshua, because he has the ability, and where there's hatred, there's always a separation between ability. So Yahshua has the ability to do something that neither one of these groups can do. So now they're gathered together in hatred against him. It's the basic story, Cain and Abel. One hates the other because the other one can do something that the other one cannot do. Now, the question is, can that person not do it because they don't have the physical ability, or they cannot do it because their heart ain't right? Go ahead.
Verse 2. He answered and said unto them, when it is evening, you say, it will be fair weather, for the sky is red. And in the morning, it will be foul weather today, for the sky is red and lowering. O you hypocrites, you can discern the face of the sky, but can you not discern the signs of the times?
No, he's not just talking about one group. The Pharisees also with the Sadducees came tempting, desiring that he would show a sign. Now, people have given us this thought of, Christ was this, real meek, mild-mannered. I mean, telling the religious authority. So the Pharisees got authority. And he straight called them hypocrites. Go ahead.
A wicked and adulterous generation seeks after a sign, and there shall no sign be given unto it, but the sign of the prophet Jonas. And he left them and departed. And when his disciples were come to the other side, they had forgotten to take bread. Then Yahshua said unto them, Take heed and beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and of the Sadducees. And they reasoned among themselves, saying, It is because we have taken no bread. Which when Yahshua perceived, he said unto them, O you of little faith, why reason you among yourselves, because you have brought no bread? Do you not yet understand, neither remember the 5 loaves of the 5,000 and how many baskets you took up? Neither the 7 loaves of the 4,000 and how many baskets you took up. How is it that you do not understand that I spake it not to you concerning bread, that you should beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and of the Sadducees? Then understood they how that he bade them not beware of the leaven of bread, but of the doctrine of the Pharisees and of the Sadducees.
So now there are these main groups of so-called Jews, and Yahshua warns them about the 2 biggest groups, that their doctrine ain't right. So there's automatically now a distinction between those 2 and his group. So now you already have in one chapter, we're looking at 3 different kinds of Jews. Yet when people talk, they will often come at you the same way that they deal with the law. They'll say the law was done away with. Your next question should be, which law? Because somehow you still get mad if I steal your car. That's law. So wait a minute. Did all law get done away with? Which law are we talking? But people will not make that distinction unless you make them make that distinction. They will keep talking about law, and they will keep talking about Jews. They will not get specific until you make them get specific. Now let's talk. Now we're talking. See, when you just say law, you in general. When you just say Jews, you in general. No. Tell me which Jews we talking about. Don't tell me law. Tell me which law we talking about. See, now we can talk. So I can't have no broad conversation. Yeah, let's just talk about the earth. Man, what part of the earth, bruh? Let's go to Matthew chapter 22. Matthew chapter 22, and I want you to start that at verse 23.
The same day came to him the Sadducees, which say that there is no resurrection.
All right, so now we're starting to get a difference right here. The same day came to him the Sadducees. Now the Sadducees, they're Jews, but they don't believe in a resurrection. So we automatically see, okay, there's differences. And people will often, it's so funny, people will often throw you in every group. And they say, oh, you're a Hebrew Israelite? Oh, yeah, y'all marched around that stadium. Nah, bro, that ain't us. What you mean? What you mean what I mean? How many kids did your pastor molest? Wait a minute, no, that wasn't us. That was Eddie Long. No. Hold on. But it was cool when you threw me in the same bucket with every Israelite, but you didn't like it when I threw you in in the same bucket with all the Christians. What happened? What happened there? You didn't like that? That bothered you? But unless you force that issue, it's going to keep happening unto you. Go ahead.
And asked him, saying, Master, Moshe said, if a man die, having no children, his brother shall marry his wife, and raise up seed unto his brother. Now there were with us 7 brethren, and the first, when he had married a wife, deceased, and having no issue, left his wife unto his brother. Likewise the second also, and the third unto the 7th. And last of all the woman died also. Therefore in the resurrection, whose wife shall she be of the 7? For they all had her.
Now, you're going to find that not only do we speak of this in this matter, but the people who are supporters of the Enochian doctrine, who believe that angels procreated with women, they use this, and they try to rebut it, saying that, well, it says they don't. It didn't say that they can't. So this is their answer, and I only know that because somebody sent me a book, and I appreciate the book. I read anything as long as it don't have me howling at the moon and clucking like a chicken. You know what I'm saying? The minute I howl at the moon, I'm putting the book down. You understand? I know to put the book down. The first time I go, hell no, put that down. I'm done. You understand? But see, some people don't know when to stop. See, they keep going. I'm curious. Now my curiosity stopped the minute I clucked. The minute I clucked, it's out. I'm out, Jack. I'm out. I don't want no knowledge so bad that I'm waiting for midnight. Oh, no, I'm out. You got to know when to get out. Go ahead.
Verse 29. Yahshua answered and said unto them, You do err, not knowing the scriptures nor the power of Elohim. For in the resurrection they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are as the angels of Elohim in heaven. But as touching the resurrection of the dead, have you not read that which was spoken unto you by Elohim, saying, I am the El of Abraham, and the El of Esaac, and the El of Jacob. Elohim is not the El of the dead, but of the living. And when the multitude heard this, they were astonished at his doctrine. But when the Pharisees had heard that he had put the Sadducees to silence, they were gathered together. Then one of them, which was a lawyer, asked him a question, tempting him, and saying, Master, which is the greatest commandment in the law? Yahshua said unto him, You shall love the Adonai your Elohim with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like unto it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets.
So they're going to try to use the law to cross him up. You have one group that believes in this, another group that believes in that, but they both have an issue with his meteoric rise in attention and ability. Some of these people have made great agreements with the Gentiles to have their authority. And here comes this fellow talking, and now people want to hear him talk. But he didn't make any backdoor deals with the Gentiles, so they're upset with him. See, people want to know why certain people make it in the music industry and others don't. All right, the ones who went back there in that back room, don't you think they're going to be angry if you just come up and you just make it and you ain't went in the back room? Wait a minute, you think you just gonna sit right here just because you talented? Hell, we all talented. You think you just finna just sit here and be on the charts? And we all went to the back room. You about to go to this back room, man. Now, sooner or later, they gonna get angry with you. And you gonna have to make a decision. I'm gonna pick another line of work. Or I'm gonna go to that back room. Don't go to the back room. I hope that ain't your choice. Go ahead, bro.
While the Pharisees were gathered together, Yahshua asked them, saying, What think you of the Messiah? Whose son is he? They say unto him, The son of David. He says unto them, How then does David in spirit call him Adonai, saying, Yahweh said unto my Adonai, Sit you on my right hand, till I make your enemies your footstool. If David then called him Adonai, how is he his son?
Right. Go ahead.
And no man was able to answer him a word. Neither durst any man from that day forth ask him any more questions.
So he ended all the questions. See? And he didn't end the questions with an answer. He ended the question with a question. See, sometimes you can keep answering stuff and stuff gonna keep coming. At some point, you have to make a decision and say, you know what, I'm going on the offensive, not the defensive. I'm through answering all your questions. Now you finna answer some for me. You'll find that sometimes the people who like putting out things don't like receiving it. They find as long as they asking all the questions. Well, let me ask a few. Don't give me the mic. Then once the questions come back at them, now understand, now these are the lawyers. These are the people who have prominence, but they can't answer the question. And now that they've been put on the spot, they're afraid to ask him any more questions. Because now they know, no, he not nothing to play with. I don't know how this gonna go if I ask him a question. But once again, we have togetherness from people who not together. That's the one thing that I've learned in this word. And I'm talking about the word has taught me this more than the streets. I watch people get together who really not together. I watch people gather together and I know they don't like one another. It is quite interesting. But if you get right in this book, oh no, it's regular. Go ahead, brother.
I was just going to say, you know, this is kind of the JW thing. While you stand at the door and you keep answering their questions, they're going to keep coming back.
You got it.
When you start throwing them questions at them, they durst not knock on your door anymore.
There you go. There you go. Man, let me tell you something. Jehovah's Witnesses avoided me for 12 years. They came to my door one time, and they came, and I was feeling froggy. It was a bad time for JW. It was a bad time. They came to that door. After that, I got a letter. I got a handwritten letter for JW. Will you come down to the place and we just, our leader want to talk to you? No. Tell him come on back down here like the rest of y'all. Tell him come on back down here. From that point on, word had got out. When they came down the street, they got on the other side of the street when they got by my house. They couldn't even walk by my mailbox. It wasn't allowed. Somehow they put out a APB. Don't go to that house. Right there. Everybody knew not to go to that house once I took care of that business. And it was because I pulled out that Jehovah's Witness book and I showed them Yahweh and Yahshua name in their book. They never wanted another Jehovah's Witness to come by my house again. Because here's the problem. Jehovah's Witness hadn't even seen that book. This book was stopped circulating in the 80s. Mm-hmm. So you're talking about 1980. They ain't never seen that their whole life. So even the person I'm talking to ain't never seen it. So I not, and they always come with a group. So, you know, and it's like a seasoned person and a young person that they supposed to be getting, you know, and they got to the point where, you know, the seasoned person would get mad, you know, because the young person was like, well, let me see more of that book, you know, and that kind of got ugly. That's why when the lady tried to snatch the book from me, man, I never had to just straight shoot no lady no bow, you know what I'm saying? But, you know, I had to go ahead and I had to box out, man. You know, she was like, well, give me the book. So we sitting over there tugging on the book, you know what I'm saying? Because now she was like, this Jehovah's book, I want it back. I was like, ah. You know what I'm saying? I didn't mean to. I didn't want to. But I had to. You know what I'm saying? No. You got to ask Jehovah for your own copy. You know what I'm saying? This was mine. This was mine right here. So the fact that you ain't seen this book, that's not my problem. But they didn't know how to react. Because they kept pushing Jehovah, and I said, well, why your book got Yahweh and Yahshua in it? And they could not reply. But see, now you have these divisions, and I mean, if you're going to be in something, you need to believe that it's right. But everybody believed that their division is correct. So much, in fact, that they cannot listen to anybody else. Mm-hmm. I'm going to listen to you. The folks sent me a book. I'm reading the book. But I'm tearing your hide up with the book, you know, that you gave me. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So thank you for the book. The book is amazing. Matter of fact, I have more information to tear up your doctrine because of your book. Thank you. I appreciate it. Go ahead, bro. Where you going?
Acts chapter 20.
Let's go to Acts 23.
Acts chapter 23 and verse 1. And Saul earnestly, beholding the council, said, Men and brethren, I have lived in all good conscience before Elohim until this day.
Now, they did not like that statement. Go ahead.
And the high priest Ananias commanded them that stood by him to smite him on the mouth.
Now, you got to understand how deep this go. You know, that the high priest can just tell somebody to slap you in your mouth. So when somebody said me, you know what I'm saying, yeah, the Jew, what Jews you talking about now? Because some of them, you know what I'm saying, straight go to your jaw. And then the high priest said, did somebody slap him? The high priest said, look, I'm too old to slap, but somebody, hey, one of you muscle-bound brothers, greet him in the face. Go ahead.
Then said Saul unto him, Elohim shall smite you, you whited wall. For sitteth you to judge me after the law, and commanded me to be smitten contrary to the law?
Now, because this man was raised a Pharisee, he understands all of these things in the law. So Yahshua has a purpose in doing certain things. He first of all pulls all of these men, right? These men were not people who were studiers of the word. All his disciples, these were regular men. Saul is the only one that has a biblically educated background. And he don't choose him until after he's dead. But you have to ask yourself a question. Sometimes it's harder to teach the people who think they already know. Yahshua didn't begin his ministry with anybody who thought they knew.
Mm-hmm.
So I ain't got time to, first of all, convince you to listen to me. All right, I'm working on limited time. I need the folk who know that they need to listen. So all you educated people, pick up your degrees and get the hell on. That was Yahshua's point right off the rip. And if you look at any situation, who are the individuals that we have the most problem with? The ones who think they already know.
Mm-hmm.
What they said, Harriet Tubman's thing was, I could have freed a whole lot more slaves if I could have convinced them that they were slaves.
Mm-hmm.
You know how hard it is to run through the bushes and convince them, you do know you're a slave, right? I don't know why we's running. Why is we's running? You know what? Send his ass back. See, he gonna get all us caught. Because he don't even know why he run. He's questioning the run. You understand? So he not gonna run right. When we said duck, he's like, well, what we ducking for? Pow! There go his head. Because he don't believe in the mission. And you got to get rid of those that don't believe in the mission, because they gonna put everybody else's life in jeopardy. Yahshua didn't pick none of them. After he gets his foundation, then here comes Saul. Saul is more educated than every last one of the disciples put together. But Yahshua didn't pick him. But for the job at hand, Saul's perfect for where he gonna have to go. Go ahead.
And they that stood by said, Revileth you Elohim's high priest? Then said Saul, I knew not, brethren, that he was the high priest.
So now he corrects himself now, because now it has been explained to him who this man is. He knows the law concerning that. Now, would the other brothers would have even known that? Would they have known not only what to do, but where it says how they're supposed to operate? Go ahead.
For it is written, you shall not speak evil of the ruler of your people.
Uh-huh.
But when Saul perceived that the one part were Sadducees and the other Pharisees,
now
he cried out in the council.
Okay, so now he know what he's dealing with. But he backed down when he found out that this man was the high priest. No. I'm not gonna go against the high priest. I didn't know he was the high priest. And he mentions the law. But now he saw something else. He said, you know what? No. I see another angle. I won't go at the high priest. He didn't say the high priest was right. I respect his authority. I will not come at him. But I see another way. I see another way. Go ahead.
Men and brethren, I am a Pharisee, the son of a Pharisee. Of the hope and resurrection of the dead, I am called in question.
Now, wait a minute. Now, we know one group don't believe in resurrection. All right? So when people tell you, the Jews, you had to ask them which ones you're talking about. Because all them people that were marching around that stadium, and they want to tell you how many thousands, not one of those people are baptized. Not one. Not the captain, not the sergeant, not the private, not the colonel. I don't care if they get Colonel Sanders and Kentucky Fried Chicken. None of them baptized. Wait a minute. We have a fundamental difference then in our belief. You can't put me in a bag with a group of people and ain't none of them been reborn. Ain't none of them been washed. Ain't none of them been. No, don't put me in that bag. So it's important that you understand the difference there. Hold on. You put me in a group of unbaptized individuals. Don't put me there. Go ahead.
And when he had so said, there arose a dissension between the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and the multitude was divided. So the Sadducees say that there is no resurrection, neither angel nor spirit.
All right, so now we got another difference. They don't believe in resurrection. There's a separation there. Now you have some that says there's no angel nor spirit, but Pharisees confess both. So now we have these groups here, and they're different belief parts. Now understand, they're still the main part of the law. They have that in common. But then at some point, there's a road that breaks off. Go ahead.
And there arose a great cry, and the scribes that were of the Pharisees' part arose and strove, saying, we find no evil in this man. But if a spirit of an angel has spoken to him, let us not fight against Elohim.
Now, wait a minute. Now, see, the Sadducees would have never said that. What are you talking about? A spirit or an angel. We don't believe in no spirit or no angels. So, now, they are pushed to agree with him because they think it helps them. So, you need to understand people. They still don't like Saul, but they like their doctrine brand. And they believe at this point, he helps their brand. Go ahead.
And when there arose a great dissension, the chief captain, fearing lest Saul should have been pulled in pieces of them, commanded the soldiers to go down and to take him by force from among them, and to bring him into the castle. And the night following, the Adonai stood by him and said, be of good cheer, Saul, for as you have testified of me in Jerusalem, so must you bear witness also at Rome.
All right. And that was the job that he was truly called for. That was the job that Yahshua knew that he was equipped for. Let's go to Matthew chapter 12 and let's hear about Yahshua's group. So we have these Sadducees who say that there is no resurrection, there's no angel, no spirit. So we need to have a mental note, because you have these people that walk around and say, well, why ain't your people together? Why ain't your people together? All Christians don't believe in the same thing. The problem is they don't even know what their division is. Ask a Baptist why he not an Episcopal. Ask a Methodist why he not a Baptist. He don't know. He don't know the difference between a Baptist and a Methodist. And what's even worse is if they try to explain it. Oh no, that's gonna become, well, see, the Baptists, see they baptize, and then the Methodist, see, the Methodists, they have a method. Man, stop, bruh. Bruh, stop. Bruh, you don't know me, bruh. Bruh, come on, just stop, bruh. Bruh, you don't know. Just say you don't know. Just say you don't know. Hell, I was a Baptist. I don't know why. Well, I know why. Because the slave master that owned my folk was Baptist. That's why I was a Baptist. But I can't tell you the difference. Or why my family, and no one in my family can tell you the difference. See, that's when you know you start growing in something, when you start asking questions. Hey, mama, why we Baptists and not Methodists? Boy, go in there and eat your dinner. That's when you, okay, yeah, don't nobody know the question. That's what I'm gathering here. Don't nobody know this, because I keep getting yelled at when I start. You can tell when you done got on your mama them nerves. Yeah, hey, boy, nobody knew the answer. And hell, it wasn't her fault. She didn't know the answer. She didn't know the answer when her folks sent her. Go ahead, Brent.
You know, Elder, you was talking about, you know, how they still didn't care for Saul, but once they found there was a common ground, they jumped on his side. But look how much harder they pushed against the other side by provoking, because they said if a spirit or angel had spoken to him, knowing that these people don't give us.
Right. Jake, something else, ain't it? It's something else, ain't it? But it helped push their point. Mm-hmm. And that's all folks trying to do. But what they don't understand is while you trying to use Yahweh, Yahweh using you too. Mm-hmm. They ain't figured it out. Because Yahweh is a great king. He sit back and watches things. So people think they're getting away with something. So they done everything they can, and they using the word, they using the people of the word, they using the church, they using the people in the church, and they don't realize that Yahweh's sitting back and he using them the whole time. Go ahead, bro.
Matthew chapter 12 and verse 22. Then was brought unto him one possessed with a devil, blind and dumb, and he healed him, insomuch that the blind and dumb both spake and saw. And all the people were amazed and said, is not this the son of David?
Now, my elder told me this a long time ago when some things was happening in my life, and he said, look, people going to be jealous of you because Yahweh is allowing you to do something, and they know they can't do it. So I'm telling you, you're going to have some problems. All right. Then there was brought unto him one possessed with a devil. Let me tell you something. This is going to cause some issues. Once them people see you doing something and Yahweh has not allowed for them to do it, they're going to attack you. But I mean, we should be accustomed to this. Man, you and two friends, y'all cool. All y'all got the same kind of broke down bicycle. But let you get that new Huffy with the knobby wheels on it. Hey, bro, all of a sudden you finna start having a problem with one of them friends. Now, y'all friends as long as y'all all on the same level. And as soon as you elevate off that level, you're going to find out one of your friends ain't that friendly. So what happened, man? We were 3 peas in a pod, bro. One of these peas is hanging out the pod. What's happening? Now they mad at you. Go ahead.
But when the Pharisees heard it, they said, this fellow does not cast out devils, but by Beelzebub, the prince of the devils.
So he can't get the credit for doing that because he's not in their group. Now, if he was in their group, then it would be a wonderful, miraculous thing that he has done. But he has done it and he ain't in their group. Now, if you're going to do it by God, then you need to be in our group. See? But now you're going to do this and you're not in our group, then you must be the devil himself has given you the power to cast out devils. Go ahead.
And Yahshua knew their thoughts and said unto them, every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation. And every city or house divided against itself shall not stand. And if Satan cast out Satan, he is divided against himself. How shall then his kingdom stand? And if I by Beelzebub cast out devils, by whom do your children cast them out?
You see that? Wait a minute. So your folks done cast out some demons. Now how is it that when Yahshua cast out some demons, that he must have done it by a demon? But you see how deep this group thing go. that they both can perform the same things, but it will be attributed to righteousness for one group if they're in that group. But it'll be for wickedness if they're not in that group. Go ahead.
Therefore they shall be your judges. But if I cast out devils by the Spirit of Elohim, then the kingdom of Elohim is come on to you. Or else, how can one enter into a strong man's house and spoil his goods, except he first bind the strong man? And then he will spoil his house.
Right. What do you think they're trying to do with allowing you to deal with other doctrine? See, there's binding the strong man physically, and then there's binding the strong man mentally. See, if you can bind the strong man mentally, you can then run amok in his house. There's constantly something trying to bind you mentally in your own house. And when it come up, you have to go sit down. That's not going to work. See, the devil don't care who it come in through. The devil will come in through your kids. It'll come in through your wife. It'll come in through your dog. You ain't careful. It doesn't matter how it binds the strong man. See, the strongest man was not really bound with the ropes that they used to try to tie him up. He was bound in his mind by that woman he chose. That's how the strong man got tied up. She kept worrying him, and he gave up his secret. A continual dropping. She just kept going at him every day. Eventually, all right. If you do this, my strength will leave me. Now stop talking to me. Got him. Strong man bound. He tied himself up. Go ahead.
And this is kind of the stand of most of our men, because of the games and all the stuff within the Christian church. Most of our brothers don't want to deal with any type of religious anything.
Right.
So they've already been bound mentally not to even want to hear nothing about the word.
And that is a trick of the devil. Because if in most of the churches, when you step foot in, it is like 75% women when you walk in the door. And you look, where all the men at? That right there. And part of a man who has gone out, and it is his job to provide for his house. And he goes out and he goes to work. And you go into corporate America and you see the games. And then that man go to church and he look up and he starts seeing game. Oh, no, man, I ain't coming in here. Because in every job, there's a system. Like, you go in a job, right? It says that, all right, you take in the product, you stamp the product here, you take the product over there to put for processing. Now, and they got metrics that they measure how fast you do such and such. Now, there are people that are going directly by the model. And then there's somebody who sit back and watch the whole process and figure out, wait a minute. This half pallet that didn't get processed, if I process that, I get double the amount. My metrics going to look good, and I'm going to get a bonus at the end of the month. Then you notice that when you go to work, there's some people that's going directly by the system. And then there's somebody else that keep going back around the back, grabbing the broken pallets. Why you keep grabbing the broken ones? And they won't tell you. Because they're not trying to know, because they won't have competition for that bonus. In every job, there's a system. And when you get accustomed to knowing, all right, I just got this job. Now, I need to figure out how they do what they do. Now figure out the real system behind it. Don't just tell me that I get paid. Tell me how I get paid. Now I'm figuring out the system. So when somebody's accustomed to that, they walk in the church and they sit down. And they look. And they figure out the system. All right. The Holy Ghost don't come until they play that music. Somehow, then the Holy Ghost is subject to that music. All right. The pretty big girl on the left gonna start jumping. This gonna happen over here. The lady with the tambourine's gonna shout. Wait a minute. You start figuring out the system. You start figuring out the system. Oh man, nah, I'm going to the house. Hey, look at baby. Y'all, you go ahead and figure it out. I'm gonna watch the game. Cause at least when I go home, I know I'm watching the game. You understand? I know I'm watching the game. They got on different jerseys. I know I'm watching the game. It took me 6 months to figure out that I was watching the game in there. Then now, our brothers don't want to deal with it. So it takes that much more to get them into this word. Go ahead.
Verse 30. He that is not with me is against me, and he that gathers not with me scatters abroad. Wherefore I say unto you, all manner of sin and blasphemy shall be forgiven unto men, but the blasphemy against the Holy Spirit shall not be forgiven unto men. And whosoever speaks a word against the Son of Man, it shall be forgiven him. But whosoever speaks against the Holy Spirit, it shall not be forgiven him, neither in this world, neither in the world to come.
All right. Let's go to Acts chapter 5. Acts chapter 5, and we're going to start at verse 12 and read through 29.
Acts chapter 5 and verse 12. And by the hands of the apostles were many signs and wonders wrought among the people, and they were all with one accord in Slomo's porch. And of the rest there's no man joined himself to them, but the people magnified them. And believers were the more added to the Adonai, multitudes both of men and women, insomuch that they brought forth the sick into the streets and laid them on beds and couches, that at least the shadow of Cephas passing by might overshadow some of them. There came also a multitude out of the cities round about unto Jerusalem, bringing sick folks, and them which were vexed with unclean spirits, and they were healed, everyone.
Now, you know this is causing great issue to these people. Now, when the Gentiles put you in power, they put you in power so that you can keep the other people in line. So now they're in danger of losing their place with the Gentiles. Hold on, man. Y'all ain't doing y'all job. Who's this fella going around healing people? There's an uproar in the street. Now, we gave y'all a position to take care of this. Go ahead.
Then the high priest rose up, and all they that were with him, which is the sect of the Sadducees.
A sect is a group. Okay? So this is a separate group, the Sadducees. And the high priest belongs to that group at this point. The high priest, next year it might be a Pharisee. It's how they make the church political. 1 minute the president is a Democrat. Next time the president is a Republican. Go ahead.
And were filled with indignation, and laid their hands on the apostles, and put them in the common prison.
Check that out. They mad at you. Why you doing all this good stuff out here? Put them in prison. Ain't they was stealing or murdering or lying. They healing people. Put them in prison. Go ahead.
But the angel of the Adonai by night opened the prison doors and brought them forth, and said, Go stand and speak in the temple to the people all the words of this life. And when they heard that, they were entered into the temple early in the morning and taught. But the high priest came, and they that were with him, and called the council together, and all the senate of the children of Israel, and sent to the prison to have them brought. But when the officers came and found them not in the prison, they returned and told.
All right,
saying,
so the whole thing was have them thrown in the prison so that they'll learn the lesson. Now, bring them forth to me so that they can threaten them and tell them, don't you speak or do any of these miracles. You need to shut that down. See, y'all a troublemaker. You know they call Martin Luther King a troublemaker, right? He said he was causing trouble. You know, now these black folk would just quietly go along. If it wasn't for you, Martin Luther King, you are a troublemaker. You want to come in here and tell these people to do this? Wait a minute, man. What I'm speaking against is injustice. But you're causing their program to not go through smoothly. Thereby, you're a troublemaker. Go ahead.
Saying, the prison truly found we shut with all safety, and the keeper standing without before the doors. But when we had opened, we found no man within. Now when the high priest and the captain of the temple and the chief priests heard these things, they doubted of them whereunto this would grow. Then came one and told them, saying, Behold, the man whom you put in prison is standing in the temple and teaching the people.
Now, they wondered if it would grow. So they threw him into prison to stop their works. Now they have made them more popular. Hey, man. Ain't they the dudes that they just put in the jail? Yeah. How they out with the chains? How they out but they still got the chains on? The jail don't give you the chains. Not now time have a brother been handcuffed and then left with the handcuff. Not now, not now. Not a damn time. If you see a brother show back up at the house and he still got the handcuff, hey, they didn't let him out. Okay? He got out by some other means. They did not free him. Go ahead.
Then went the captain with the officers and brought them without violence, for they feared the people, lest they should have been stoned. And when they had brought them, they set them before the council. And the high priest asked them, saying, Did not we straitly command you that you should not teach in this name? And, behold, you have filled Jerusalem with your doctrine and intend to bring this man's blood upon us.
Check that out. Did not we straitly command you that you should not teach in this name? And let me tell you why this is so disrespectful. I've been in this word over 20 years. When I got in this word, people had nothing but bad stuff to say. Why? I remember people saying, why you letting your hair grow all over your face? I can't even see what you look like no more. Okay. Why you dressing like this? Why? Who is this Yahshua and Yahweh? You sure you're not in the cult? Let me tell you the disrespectful manner. 20 years now, all the Christian, now all of a sudden you can find a Christian pastor with a beard. Do you realize that you back up 20 years, there was not one Christian with a beard? Look at the clothing that they wear. All of a sudden now they can say Yahweh and Yahshua. Oh, it's disrespectful. You got those who worked hard for this. Now all of a sudden they just miraculously know the name of Yahweh. No, they always knew it. But they couldn't persuade us or threaten us to stop teaching in that name. Now they teaching in the name. But they got a problem. Lucifer gonna call their hand. See, they understand that they've gotten some things by some other means. See, Yahweh know when we use his name, oh, no. These people stand on it. They were baptized in it. These people calling on the name that they weren't baptized in. Uh-oh. The evil spirit says, Saul, I know. Yahshua, I know. Who the hell is you? Who are you? So you got people calling on the name of Yahweh and Yahshua. They nor anybody in their house has been baptized in that name that they call it. Folk don't understand. All right. Sooner or later the bill come due. Keep swiping. But sooner or later the bill gonna come due. How many times you use my name? All right, now talk to me about your baptism. Oh, I'm sorry, you don't have one. Okay, well, somebody in your house got baptized, right? Okay, nobody? But you walk around calling my name. Well, hey, we got to discuss payment. Somebody got to pay for this. Go ahead.
Then Cephas and the other apostles answered and said, we ought to obey Elohim rather than men.
All right, we ought to obey Elohim rather than men. Let's go to Acts chapter 24. Acts 24, and let's start that at verse 1.
And after 5 days, Ananias the high priest descended with the elders and with a certain orator named Tertullus, who informed the governor against Saul. And when he was called forth, Tertullus began to accuse him, saying, seeing that by you we enjoy great quietness, and that very worthy deeds are done unto this nation by your province, we accept it always and in all places, most noble Felix, with all thankfulness. Notwithstanding that I be not further tedious unto you, I pray you that you would hear us of your clemency a few words. For we have found this man a pestilent fellow, and a mover of sedition among all the Yehudims throughout the world, and a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes.
A ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes. Now, Yeshua's group was called the sect of the Nazarenes. So now you have Sadducees, Pharisees, and now you have Yeshua's group, the sect of the Nazarenes. And understand something. It says they are spoken against by all these people. But wait a minute. This is the correct group. So can you suffer being spoken against? Go ahead.
Who also has gone about to profane the temple, whom we took, and would have judged according to our law. But the chief captain Lysias came upon us, and with great violence took him away out of our hands.
We would have judged him. We would have took care of that business. Go ahead.
Commanding his accusers to come on to you, by examining of whom yourself may take knowledge of all these things, whereof we accuse him. And the Yehudims also assented, saying that these things were so. Then Saul, after that the governor had beckoned on to him to speak, answered.
Now, one of the reasons why he is chosen for this job, he's not just a Jew, but because he was born abroad, he has Roman citizenship. Being that he has Roman citizenship, they have to deal with him by the law. They can't just make an accusation. This is why, people say, I never choose African American on my license because of how they have it. They don't have to abide by no laws dealing with this group that they made up the classification for. So you find that there might be people who came to America on the inner tube, but they had a child here. Guess what? The child legal. The child was born on soil. Now, they have to deal with the child with a greater respect than they have to deal with the adult, even though that's an adult. The adult didn't come here legally. It wasn't born here legally, but the child was. So, just by that, Yeshua knew exactly, no. I need Saul for this job. See, I take y'all to Rome, they're going to devour y'all. But he know he got dual citizenship. They gonna have to respect him, and he know the law. Go ahead.
For as much as I know that you have been of many years a judge unto this nation, I do the more cheerfully answer for myself, because that you may understand that there are yet but 12 days since I went up to Jerusalem for to worship. And they neither found me in the temple disputing with any man, neither raising up the people, neither in the synagogues nor in the city.
Yep, but they said that he's a pestilent fellow. He done brought unclean people in the temple. He's done all of these things. He said every last bit of that is a lie. But this is what happens when you have this different divisions. Other people agree with what their group says, even when they don't agree. Go ahead.
You know, you were mentioning earlier, perfect man for the perfect job. As you put Cephas in this situation, he'd be like, they lying.
Right.
But Saul is able to explain and articulate.
To calmly explain.
Yep.
See, we get all emotional with, now you ain't gonna get on that way. Now these people don't react to emotion. These people react to the rules and regulations. You have to learn how to operate from within their rule system. You can't just go over there and, I'm gonna be, more emotional than the next person, and then they're gonna see my emotion. No. You obviously ain't never dealt with Gentiles. No, you have to pull out the papers and show them. No, you see this right here? All right, now you see this right here? Show it to me. Show me where I perform these things that are written in this law. Now they got to deal with you differently, especially knowing that he got papers. Go ahead.
Neither can they now prove the things whereof they now accuse me. But this I confess unto you, that after the way which they call heresy, so worshiped I the Elohim of my fathers, believing all things which are written in the law and in the prophets, and of hope toward Elohim, which they themselves also allow, that there shall be a resurrection of the dead, both of the just and unjust.
Both of the just and unjust. You're going to be resurrected one way or another. See, this is why you have to decide which things you're going to allow yourself to go through on this side. Because you're going to get resurrected. Don't worry about that. The problem is where you're going to be. That's the question. Go ahead.
And herein do I exercise myself to have always a conscience void of offense toward Elohim and toward men. Now after many years I came to bring alms to my nation and offerings, whereupon certain Yehudims from Asia found me purified in the temple, neither with multitude nor with tumult, who ought to have been here before you and object if they had aught against me. Or else let these same here say, if they have found any evil doing in me while I stood before the council, except it be for this one voice that I cried standing among them, touching the resurrection of the dead, I am called in question by you this day. And when Felix had heard these things, having more perfect knowledge of that way, he deferred them and said, when Lysias the chief captain shall come down, I will know the uttermost of your matter. And he commanded a centurion to keep Saul and to let him have liberty, and that he should forbid none of his acquaintance to minister or come on to him. And after certain days, when Felix came with his wife Drusilla, which was a Yehudis, he sent for Saul and heard him concerning the faith in Yeshua.
All right, stop for a second. Verse 24. And after certain days, when Felix came with his wife Drusilla, which was a Jewess. So then the child of Felix and Drusilla then gonna be Jewish through the mom. No. You need to have these points here so that you have the ability to throw away that garbage when it come at you. Because the other people don't know it's garbage. Go ahead.
And as he reasoned of righteousness, temperance, and judgment to come, Felix trembled and answered, go your way for this time. When I have a convenient season, I will call for you. He hoped also that money should have been given him of Saul, that he might loose him. Wherefore he sent for him the oftener and communed with him. But after 2 years, Perseus Festus came into Felix's room, and Felix, willing to show the Yehudims a pleasure, left Saul bound.
Now, this is also the inner fighting within the Jewish people, but understand what's happening because of the presence of the Gentiles. They are using all of that to pull them against each other. This is colonialism in full effect. It is full effect colonialism that have them going against one another because you have the Gentiles putting the priests in charge who they want. Now, what do you think they expect from him when they put him in charge? Do you think they put him in charge to actually look out for their people? Well, you have to ask yourself. Look at this land. Every dictator that they warred against, somehow, we was also the same ones who put the dictator in. Where did Bin Laden come from? Yeah, where did the other guy they killed over there come from? You keep drawing these lines. Wait a minute, ain't them the people you put in there? You gave these people this power. But once them people decide that they're going to actually look out for those people, they got to get out of there. Let's go to Acts chapter 28. Acts chapter 28, and let's start that at verse 17.
And it came to pass that after 3 days Saul called the chief of the Yehudis together. And when they were come together, he said unto them, Men and brethren, though I have committed nothing against the people or customs of our fathers, yet was I delivered prisoner from Jerusalem into the hands of the Romans, whom when they had examined me, would have let me go, because there was no cause of death in me. But when the Yehudim spake against it, I was constrained to appeal unto Caesar. Not that I had aught to accuse my nation of. For this cause, therefore, I have called for you, to see you, and to speak with you, because that for the hope of Israel I am bound with this chain. And they said unto him, We neither received letters out of Judea concerning you, neither any of the brethren that came showed or spake any harm of you. But we desire to hear of you what you thinketh. For as concerning this sect, we know that everywhere it is spoken against.
Check that out. This sect of the Nazarenes, everywhere it is spoken against. So as far as the media portrayal of Yeshua's group is not positive. I need you to get that in your head for a second. How the media portrayed Yeshua's group is not positive. He said everywhere it is spoken against.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if they have defectors, if you will, or agents in the Sadducees and the Pharisees, they don't have a reason to speak against them. Why? Because they have people in those organizations to make sure that it goes the way that they want it to go. And even with that, consider, did they not turn Judas one of...
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Go ahead.
Verse 23. And when they had appointed him a day, there came many to him into his lodging, to whom he expounded and testified the kingdom of Elohim, persuading them concerning Yahshua, both out of the law of Moshe and out of the prophets, from morning till evening. And some believed the things which were spoken, and some believed not. And when they agreed not among themselves, they departed, after that Saul had spoken one word. Well, spake the Holy Spirit by Esaias the prophet unto our fathers, saying, Go unto this people, and say, Hearing you shall hear, and shall not understand, and seeing you shall see, and not perceive. For the heart of this people is waxed gross, and their ears are dull of hearing, and their eyes have they closed, lest they should see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and understand with their heart, and should be converted, and I should heal them. Be it known, therefore, unto you, that the salvation of Elohim is sent unto the Gentiles, and that they will hear it.
It is sent unto the Gentiles, and they will hear it. Go ahead.
And when he had said these words, the Yehudim departed, and had great reasoning among themselves. And Saul dwelt 2 whole years in his own hired house and received all that came in unto him, preaching the kingdom of Elohim and teaching those things which concerning the Adonai Yahshua HaMashiach with all confidence, no man forbidding him.
Right. The very one whom he persecuted. Let's go to Matthew chapter 23. So then we have these scribes and Pharisees, and they are closely related. Oftentimes when you hear about the scribes, you're going to hear Pharisee right behind that. So let's go into that. Matthew 23, let's start at verse 1.
Then spake Yahshua to the multitude and to his disciples, saying, the scribes and Pharisees sit in Moshe's seat. All therefore whatsoever they bid you observe, that observe and do. But do not you after their works, for they say and do not.
Wait a minute. They say and do not. So they know the law. They know how things are supposed to be done. But do not watch their doings and believe that because they do something that is right. Go ahead.
For they bind heavy burdens and grievous to be borne, and lay them on men's shoulders, but they themselves will not move them with one of their fingers. But all their works they do for to be seen of men. They make broad their phylacteries, and enlarge the borders of their garments, and love the uppermost rooms at feast, and the chief seats in the synagogues, and greetings in the markets, and to be called of men, Rabbi, Rabbi. But be not you called Rabbi, for one is your master.
Wait a minute. Now, Yahshua said, don't let nobody call you Rabbi. But what have we been taught? We are actually have a bigger problem with somebody being called a priest than a rabbi. That is utterly amazing. But why were we conditioned? If a rabbi means master, wait a minute. We're accustomed to saying master.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, they want you to say master. Wait a minute. Master is what the slave had to say to the man in charge. You know, they even changing that whole term, master bedroom. That come from, that was the master's bedroom. Now, if you buy a house, they reword that. It's the primary suite. The what? What the hell is that? It's the primary living quarters. But we so accustomed, you know, and I'm country. So what about the bedroom at? I don't understand what you're talking about. So we don't use that term anymore. Oh, really? Well, I just got free yesterday. I didn't know. Hell, I didn't know. I didn't know. So now I'm asking for the primary living quarters. I'm sorry. I didn't know. Yeah. So we're accustomed to saying master. But Yahshua said don't. Go ahead.
But be not you called Rabbi, for one is your master, even the Mashiach, and all you are brethren. And call no man your father upon the earth, for one is your Father, which is in heaven. Neither be you called masters, for one is your master, even the Mashiach. But he that is greatest among you shall be your servant. And whosoever shall exalt himself shall be abased, and he that shall humble himself shall be exalted. But woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you shut up the kingdom of heaven against men. For you neither go in yourselves, neither suffer you them that are entering to go in. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you devour widows' houses, and for a pretense make long prayer. Therefore you shall receive the greater damnation. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you compass sea and land to make one proselyte, and when he's made, you make him twofold more the child of hell than yourselves.
So you can see why Yahshua's group will be spoken of against by everybody. He's not trying to make friends with scribes, Pharisees, or Sadducees. So then people say, well, you know, man, we kind of go from, group to group, and we try to have us a gathering with all the camps. Oh, yeah? Congratulations. Yeshua wasn't interested. Yeshua wasn't interested in hanging out with the Pharisees or the Sadducees. He wasn't interested in hanging with the scribes. No, we have a difference. We have a doctrinal difference. Go ahead.
Woe unto you, blind guides, which say, whosoever shall swear by the temple, it is nothing, but whosoever shall swear by the gold of the temple, he is a debtor. You fools and blind, for whether is greater, the gold or the temple with that sanctifies the gold? And whosoever shall swear by the altar, it is nothing, but whosoever swears by the gift that is upon it, he is guilty. You fools and blind, for whether is greater, the gift or the altar that sanctified the gift? Whoso therefore shall swear by the altar, swears by it, and by all things thereon. And whoso shall swear by the temple, swears by it, and by him that dwells therein. And he that shall swear by heaven, swears by the throne of Elohim, and by him that sits thereon. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you pay tithe of mint and anise and cumin, and have omitted the weightier matters of the law, judgment, mercy, and faith. These ought you to have done, and not to leave the other undone.
Right. And you look at the church today, the thing that they're going to deal with wholeheartedly is tithing. But they won't talk about no other law. They tell you that the law is nailed to the cross, but then at the same time tell you that if you don't pay your tithe, you should be lined up in front of a firing squad and shot with a Uzi. Those were Creflo's exact words. His exact words were, if you don't pay your tithe, you should be lined up in front of a firing squad and shot with an Uzi. But the law nailed to the cross. If the law nailed to the cross, put that damn Uzi down. What are you doing with that? Go ahead.
You blind guides, which strain at a gnat and swallow a camel. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you make clean the outside of the cup of the platter, but within they are full of extortion and excess.
Extortion and excess. You go to watch a sermon, you get 3 scriptures, and you got to pay $99.99 for the DVD set to get the explanation of those 3. You got to pay a seed offering for this, seed offering for that. Right. Extortion. Go ahead.
You blind Pharisee, cleanse first that which is within the cup and platter, that the outside of them may be clean also. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you are like unto whited graves, which indeed appear beautiful outward, but are within full of dead man's bones and of all uncleanness.
Right. How clean can a grave be? I don't care what you do to the outside of it. How clean can it actually be? Now consider there are churches that have the grave site on the same grounds. There's one not far from here that the grave's in the front. You walk through the graves to get through the front door. Go ahead.
Even so they also outwardly appear righteous unto men, but within you are full of hypocrisy and lawlessness. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, because you build the tombs of the prophets and garnish the graves of the righteous, and say, if we had been in the days of our fathers, we would not have been partakers with them in the blood of the prophets. Wherefore you be witnesses unto yourselves, that you are the children of them which killed the prophets. Fill you up then the measure of your fathers. You serpents, you generation of vipers, how can you escape the damnation of hell?
It don't sound like he's trying to be friends at all. You serpents, you generation of vipers, how can you escape the damnation? Go ahead.
Wherefore, behold, I send unto you prophets, and wise men, and scribes, and some of them you shall kill and crucify, and some of them shall you scourge in your synagogues, and persecute them from city to city, that upon you may come all the righteous blood shed upon the earth, from the blood of righteous Abel unto the blood of Zacharias, son of Barachias, whom you slew between the temple and the altar. Verily I say unto you, all these things shall come upon this generation. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, you that kill the prophets and stone them which are sent unto you.
Stop. You need to understand that if you're going to deal with Israel, oh Jerusalem, Jerusalem, you that killed the prophets and stoned them which are sent unto you. See, we have a tendency to agree with the people who agree with us. But once there's something that causes us to either step on a higher level, we end up having an issue. So understand it's customary for when somebody goes to Israel and say, all right, you need to deal with this, that they say, all right, we need to kill this person. Go ahead.
How often would I have gathered your children together, even as a hen gathers her chickens under her wings, and you would not? Behold, your house is left unto you desolate. For I say unto you, you shall not see me henceforth, till you shall say, blessed is he that comes in the name of the Adonai. And Yahshua went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him for to show him the buildings of the temple. And Yahshua said unto them, see you not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down.
So then now he's talking about the destruction that is going to come upon Jerusalem. But these individuals, these other groups, need for there not to be a schism because they're getting their power through the temple. Okay? So they need to try to persuade the other children of Israel, let's not have a problem with these Gentiles, because then I'm going to lose my job. So understand the dilemma. I want you to read the definition for Pharisee.
From G5330, Phariseos, of Hebrew origin, compare H6567, a separatist, that is exclusively religious. A Parisian, that is Jewish secretary, Pharisee.
So now let's look at where it says of Hebrew origin. Read that one for me.
Parash, H6567, of Hebrew origin, to make distinct, declare, distinguish, separate. Qual, to declare, clarify. Paul, to be distinctly declared. Hyphil, to pierce, sting. Nafal, scatter.
All right. Let's read the definition of scribe.
G1122, grammateos. From G1121, a writer, that is, professionally, scribe or secretary.
So you didn't see how scribe and Pharisee fit in within the same definition. Now let's read the Hebrew part of scribe for me.
From H5608, to count, recount, relate, to recount, rehearse, declare, learn, man, scribe.
Now, saying that, there's another group that we have to discuss that we're not going to find in here. But we find the evidence of a lot of other things that we have encountered comes from this group. There's another group called the Essenes. Now, we're going to you have to go to other writings to read about these individuals. And now, why is that important? We're going to get to some other things that we get questioned about, and it ends up coming from that group. So let's start reading. Go to the next graphic and read about the Essenes.
Essenes, an almost forgotten Jewish sect until the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls in the 1940s through 50s.
Now, understand what's happening. So this is a group that we can't find in the book. But when they found the Dead Sea Scrolls, these are the things that people talk about. The Dead Sea Scrolls, they found these books, they found all of these things. So now the things that this group dealt with is now pushed forward. But do understand, the Dead Sea Scrolls was not a library for all these other individuals. It was a holding spot for this one group. Now, we've just read the differences between the groups that we know of. Now understand, the Essenes have these caves, and you just find writings, only the writings that they put up. Now I need you to consider that. So when people start coming at you about Enoch writings and all of that, that was found with their stuff. So now you're just getting the library from one group. That does not include Yeshua's group. That does not include the Pharisees. That does not include the Sadducees. Think about that. Go ahead.
The Essenes were a small separatist group that grew out of the conflicts of the Maccabean age. Like the Pharisees, they stressed strict legal observance, but they considered the temple priesthood corrupt and rejected much of the temple ritual and sacrificial system.
Now, why did they get to this point? Understand, the Gentiles have infiltrated the entire system. This is why Yeshua's going off on the system. Okay? These people, they just moved. They just moved. Go ahead.
However, the Essenes were never mentioned in the Bible, unlike the Pharisees and Sadducees. Mentioned by several ancient writers, such as Philo or Alexandria, Josephus, and Pliny the Elder, the precise nature of the Essenes is still not certain, though it is generally agreed that the Qumran community that produced the Dead Sea Scrolls was an Essene group. Pliny numbered the group at around 4,000 men. The name Essenes was not a name chosen by the group itself, but rather assigned by scholars and writers. The Qumran community referred to themselves as sons of Zadok, men of the community, members of the covenant, sons of light, etc.
So you got a whole lot of different things going on right there. Go ahead.
The root meaning of Essenes is debated to mean either the modest ones, the silent ones, or perhaps pious.
All right, let's go to the next graphic.
What happened to the Essenes? Because they were convinced that they were the true remnant, these Qumran Essenes had separated themselves from Judaism at large and devoted themselves to personal purity in preparation for the final war between the sons of light and the sons of darkness. They practiced an apocalyptic faith. Apocalyptic faith.
All right, so then I understand something. This is when we go and reread the things about the Maccabees. The Maccabees are trying to fight off the Gentile ruling authority. The problem is the times of the Gentiles had already begun. They wasn't going to win that fight. See, you can have the zeal, but your zeal got to match up with Yahweh's timing. And it didn't. Well, these Essenes are in that group that they're going to fight against these Gentiles. So this is why their stuff ends off into these caves, because they have separated themselves from the rest of Judaism. Go ahead.
Looking back to the contributions of their teacher of righteousness and forward to the coming of 2 and possibly 3 messiahs. The destruction of the temple in AD 70, however, seems to have delivered a death blow to their apocalyptic expectations.
Right. Once the temple is destroyed, all of that they're trying to uphold is done. So then now all of these documents sit, because it wasn't a building that the Gentiles can go and destroy. They found these things stashed away. But remember, these are just the things of one group. What I find interesting is that people will talk to you about the Dead Sea Scrolls and the things that were found among it, and then say that, this says why you should deal with it. This is that one group dealt with it. And let me tell you something. everybody doesn't deal with everything that's in their library. If you go and look at my study, you're going to find the Quran. That don't mean I believe in the Quran. That means there was something in it that I wanted to research, so I bought the book. You might find the Sefer Bible. That don't mean I used that Bible. There was something in it that I wanted to research. Hell, I got several books of Enoch. Please don't think that I deal with any of that. It was something that I wanted to research. So just because you found these things in somebody's library does not mean that all the people subscribe to that. And we're going to get to that because there's divisions even in the Essenes. Go ahead.
Dead Sea Scrolls. The scrolls did not just rewrite the history of the Hebrew Bible's development, they rewrote the history of Judea in the late Second Temple period.
Now, when we deal with the Second Temple period, understand something. Solomon built the first temple. That was built by an Israelite. The second one is Herod. Herod is not Jewish. He's Jewish through his mama or through his wife, son, somebody. Okay? But understand what's happening here. This is a totally different time period where the Gentiles have authority. So when you keep hearing about somebody speaking about it was authorized by the Jews, now you got to ask yourself, which Jews we talking about? Because it wasn't the first temple Jews, that was Solomon. Second temple Jews, that's Herod's rule. Now we talking about something altogether different. But if you don't know to ask that question, you keep thinking that it was all the same people who agreed to this. Incorrect. Go ahead.
Most of these texts were written when the Second Temple still stood in Jerusalem. When Jewish sects, including the Pharisees and Sadducees, argued about the correct interpretation of the law, and when the Greeks, Hasmoneans, and then Romans, with Herod as a client king, ruled over the region.
Client king. Herod was appointed. So when people start telling you that this is what the Jews did, which Jews we talking about? The ones who were appointed by the ruling army? Go ahead.
A few other texts date as far back as the 8th century BCE, during the time of the First Temple, while some are as late as Islamic conquest of the region in the 7th century CE. Who wrote the Dead Sea Scrolls? Indeed, there is debate about the author's identity, but many connect them with the Essene community, another Jewish sect who lived in Qumran. The scrolls then would have been their library.
Their library. Just theirs. So before we turn around and we take all these other things that were in there and say that, oh, this has been verified. That's like going into your granddaddy's study and finding a book and said, my granddaddy dealt with all this. Your granddaddy might have dealt with what was on page 17. That's it. To turn around and then take that whole book and say that it is 100% dealt with because I found it in my granddaddy's study. Go ahead.
As noted above, the environment around Qumran is arid. Although it was more fertile in antiquity than today, it still would not have been the most comfortable place to live. Yet it was well suited for the Essenes, who sought to remove themselves from society to live pure, righteous lives in accordance with a strict interpretation of Jewish law. One of the documents uncovered among the scrolls, the community rule, gives some insight into life for the Qumran community, if indeed they were the authors of the scrolls. We see from other texts that this group was anticipating eschatological events, the end of days. They believed that the promised Messiah would soon return, overthrow corrupt society, and usher in the kingdom of Elohim.
Now, the only people who are looking for a Messiah is people who are being ruled over rigorously. Other Jews wasn't trying to get none of that because they were on the side of the Gentiles. Go ahead.
Josephus on the Essenes. Steve Mason argues that the text of Josephus cannot be relied upon to support the conclusion that the Essenes were the authors of the Dead Sea Scrolls and the inhabitants of Qumran. Imaginary Portrait of Josephus by Thomas Addis
Now,
Emmett.
jump down. I want you to read what he said here about the Essenes. Go ahead.
Flavius Josephus was a first century Jewish historian, politician, and soldier whose literary works provide crucial documentation of Roman Palestine in the first century AD.
Now, listen to that. Roman Palestine. So, when we watch the things that are happening right now, consider where all the military is coming from to fight in Palestine. The evidence is right in front of us as to what's actually happening. Now, if this person, Josephus was a historian, a politician, and a soldier, wait a minute. You have to understand about being able to write in a Gentile control system. You either got to write in code or with certain things they ain't going to let you write. When our people had to communicate amongst the slave masters, they learned to talk in code. What do you think them dudes out there doing on the street? They talking in code. Even the quilts that our people put together were telling stories. They were speaking in code. So if you think that these Gentiles going to come in and destroy all of Jerusalem, but let him write whatever he wrote, you got another thing coming.
Mm-hmm.
Some of that has to be either for their benefit or he's got to curve it so that his people of that era would know what he was saying and the people would not. Go ahead.
At age 29, he was appointed general of the Jewish forces in Galilee. He was eventually captured by Vespasian, who was at that time the supreme commander of the Roman army. Josephus catapulted and sought to ingratiate himself with the Roman general.
Now, they don't often, once you fight against them, it's normally a done deal. But somehow, he has moved his way in with the Romans. Go ahead.
Eventually becoming part of the imperial court in Rome. He was an eyewitness to the destruction of Jerusalem and the Second Temple by the Roman army in 70 AD. He spent the rest of his life in Rome pursuing his literary career, the surviving results of which comprise a vital source of historical information.
And there are books upon books, the antiquities of the Jews, the wars of the Jews, that was put together by Josephus. Go ahead.
Josephus's commentaries on the laws, the characteristics of the Essene community have been invaluable to scholars studying ancient Jewish laws and customs. They have also been the subject of much debate, particularly as they pertain to the Dead Sea Scrolls. Researchers have relied heavily on Josephus's works as they tried to determine who wrote the Dead Sea Scrolls, who inhabited Qumran, and whether or not the authors of the scrolls and the community at Qumran were in fact one and the same.
All right, so I want you to read this part out of the Jewish War, Book 2, Chapter 8.
For three forms of philosophy are pursued among the Judeans. The members of one are the Pharisees, of another Sadducees, and the third school, who certainly are reputed to cultivate seriousness, are called Essenes.
Now, what I find interesting is that all of the people who push the book of Enoch will not speak to you concerning the Essenes of the people whom all of this writing was found. And as we keep reading, you're going to understand why they don't particularly mention the very people whom this book of Enoch was found. Keep going.
Although Judeans by ancestry, they are even more mutually affectionate than the others. Whereas these men shun the pleasures as vice, they consider self-control and not succumbing to the passions virtue. And although there is among them a disdain for marriage,
Among them, there's a disdain for marriage. Now, they found among them the book of Enoch, but at the same time, you know, these individuals who this was found among, there's a separation of them concerning marriage. Yet the individuals that had these books were talking about angels being with women.
right,
Go ahead.
adopting the children of outsiders while they are still malleable enough for the lessons they regard them as family, and instill in them their principles of character.
Now, wait a minute, bro. This has got to be one of the strangest things. The priesthood goes by lineage of sons. But yet these people disdain marriage and would rather grab strangers and try to teach them the way and get them as young. That's what they said, malleable, that you can form it. See, once a kid gets to a certain age, you're pretty much done. You got to get them at an age where you can form their thought process. So rather than have their own kids, they rather get somebody else's kids and form them.
Sounds like something modern, don't it?
Something strange about that. Now, why we don't discuss all of this when we start talking all these other things? But understand, this is where they found these books. This is what these people deal with. Keep going.
Without doing away with marriage or the secession resulting from it, they nevertheless protect themselves from the wanton ways of women, having been persuaded that none of them preserves her faithfulness to one man.
So they have an issue believing that a woman can't be with one man, period, that none of them do this. This is the thought process of these individuals. It's somewhat interesting when you look at all of these other things that they're trying to tell you, push this. Well, wait a minute. Let's look at who had these books. Go to the next graphic.
Since they are despisers of wealth, their communal stock is astonishing. One cannot find a person among them who has more in terms of possessions, for by a law, those coming into the school must yield up their funds to the order.
They must yield up their funds to the order. Makes you think about that part where Ananias and Sapphira sold their things. Everyone that dealt with these individuals, they all turned in all their stuff. Go ahead.
With the result that in all their ranks, neither the humiliation of poverty nor the superiority of wealth is detectable, but the assets of each one have been mixed in together as if they were brothers, to create one fund for all. They consider olive oil a stain, and should anyone be accidentally smeared with it, he scrubs his body, for they make it a point of honor to remain hard and dry, and to wear white always. Hand-elected are the curators of the communal affairs, and indivisible are they, each and every one, in pursuing their functions to the advantage of all.
Now, one of the things, and just reading of that, when you consider that this is where these books come from, there's another part that you're going to keep hearing, that they validated by Mesopotamian literature. So let's go to Acts chapter 7.
You know, Elder, listening to this whole setup, this communal setup, this is the whole communal setup of what YB Whiteham had going on.
Hey, it's pretty interesting, isn't it? That when you go back and you start research, you know, don't just tell me the book. Tell me who these people were that you got the book from. Because, you know, we always ask that question, but we ask the question differently. Where you get the book from? If this person is so aged, where did you get the book from? Because even as we start going into some of those, even what Josephus wrote, he basically starts paraphrasing other things that are in the Bible at one point. My problem with some of these other writings is they're giving you other details about events that they could not have possibly been alive for. This is a Second Temple writing, but you have input on what happened in Genesis chapter 6. You wasn't there. When it was given to Moshe, he wasn't there. So how you know more about Genesis 6 than Moshe? That's quite interesting. Acts chapter 7, we're going to read verses 1 through 8.
Then said the high priest, Are these things so? And he said, Men and brethren and fathers, hearken. The Elohim of glory appeared unto our father Abraham when he was in Mesopotamia, before he dwelt in Haran, and said unto him, Get you out of your country and from your kindred, and come into the land which I shall show you.
So the Elohim of glory appeared unto our father Abraham when he was in Mesopotamia. Now, he's getting him out of there. Everything that you start hearing where they're trying to validate these other books, how about they're using Mesopotamian literature to say this is why we should deal with it? Keep reading.
Then came he out of the land of the Chaldeans, and dwelt in Haran. And from thence, when his father was dead, he removed him into this land wherein you now dwell. And he gave him non-inheritance in it, no, not so much as to set his foot on. Yet he promised that he would give it to him for a possession, and to his seed after him, when as yet he had no child. And Elohim spake on this wise, that his seed should sojourn in a strange land, and that they should bring them into bondage, and entreat them evil 400 years. And the nation to whom they shall be in bondage will I judge, said Elohim, and after that shall they come forth and serve me in this place.
So, we have reiterated here in the New Testament what was written in the Old, that the children of Israel were going to serve some nation for 400 years. And afterwards, they were going to then come to that place. Now, the people whom they were ruled over by, he's going to judge those people. Can anybody tell me a judgment of Germany that's happening right now? We got 2 times where this is written, at least, that the children of Israel was supposed to be somewhere 400 years. Now, let's add up the time. How long was somebody in Germany, and when they came out, was there great judgment from Yahweh upon these individuals? Everybody still, matter of fact, they got enough money to pay people. Where are these events that the book talks about? So now you understand why there's an importance to get you out of these books and get you into some other ones. Because if you keep piddling around in here, you're going to run into something and you're going to question somebody. Guess what? You ain't never going to run into that in those other books. Because you're going to be too busy talking about angels. You're going to be too busy talking about all this other stuff. But you're not going to ask the question, excuse me, how you get there? Because I've been reading, and there's certain things that say you ain't going to run into that as long as you're trying to follow the angels. You ain't going to run into that as long as you're trying to look at the priest thought process on what was written in the Bible. How about just read the Bible? So there is a controlled effort to get you out of this book and get you into another one. Because just as simple as you're in Acts chapter 7, but you just ran into something that has biblical roots, information about the children of Israel. Now, most people who read in Acts are not trying to get the biblical root understanding of the children of Israel. So people can just accidentally run into this and say, okay, so what was the 400 years? What was he talking about? Egypt? Well, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Now, people who are not wanting you to come in contact with this knowledge, now they're having a problem. Because Moshe talked about a captivity after coming out of Egypt. He ain't talking about Egypt if he just came out of it. There's a captivity that's supposed to happen after that. That's why they need to get you out of this book. Let's go to Judges chapter 3. Judges chapter 3, and I want to read verses 1 through 11.
Now these are the nations which Yahweh left, to prove Israel by them, even as many of Israel as had not known all the wars of Canaan. Only that the generations of the children of Israel might know, to teach them war, at the least such as before knew nothing thereof. Namely, 5 masters of the Philistines, and of the Canaanites, and the Zidonians, and the Hivites, that dwelt in Mount Lebanon, from Mount Baal Hermon onto the entering in of Hamath.
Now, you ever wonder why there's never a discussion concerning who was in the land of Israel before Israel? Because you know, when you start doing that research, you found out that those are what we call Africans. We found out that those are Hamites, those called burnt black. Now, when you start looking at people's comments on it, they'll tell you that the what's that little imaginary line they call the Tropic of Cancer? They said that, you know, no black people were ever above the line of Tropic of Cancer in Africa. All the, you know, because it's hotter lower than that. So, and that's an imaginary line that goes across the earth. In that case, the people in Mississippi ain't supposed to be black. That line don't make no sense. But they got to try to give you something. But if you don't know no better, you'll listen to this information and it sounds so technical. All right, when it sounds technical, go look it up. Tropic of Cancer line. And why that line go across the earth? So you mean tell me I'm supposed to be light skinned then? That what you telling me? Well, something wrong with your tropic. Something wrong with that line. That line under Florida. What you talking about? But see, you ain't supposed to follow that far. You just supposed to look at the line in Africa. No, keep going. Keep going. They want you to believe that there was no black people there. The Canaanites are African. But guess what? You're not going to run into that if you off chasing angels. And you're not going to run into that if you off in their Talmud. Pay attention. When somebody's trying to drive you out of a book, you need to ask, why? The evidence of who the true children of Israel are will not be contained in those books. Go ahead.
And they were to prove Israel by them, to know whether they would hearken unto the commandments of Yahweh, which he commanded their fathers by the hand of Moshe. And the children of Israel dwelt among the Canaanites, Hittites, and Amorites, the Perizzites, and Hivites, and Jebusites. And they took their daughters to be their wives, and gave their daughters to their sons, and served their gods. And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of Yahweh, and forgot Yahweh their Elohim, and served Baalim and the groves.
All right, so then we look at what's then happened when Israel dwells among the people. Now Israel ends up transforming. Let's go to Acts chapter 2. Acts chapter 2, and we're going to read verses 1 through 11. Now, when you start doing research on these these other books, the whole Enochian thing, you're going to run into constantly Mesopotamian literature. Mesopotamia is going to come out over and over and over again. Even when they try to link up, well, these places have a flood story. Every nation should have a flood story. It shouldn't just be in the Bible. Every last one of them should have one. Go ahead.
And when the day of Pentecost was fully come, they were all with one accord in one place. And suddenly there came a sound from heaven as of a rushing mighty wind, and it filled all the house where they were sitting. And there appeared unto them cloven tongues like as of fire, and it sat upon each of them. And they were all filled with the Holy Spirit, and began to speak in other languages, as the Spirit gave them utterance.
So then these people have been spread all over the place. So now when they come back to keep the holy day, they need some help being able to understand one another. Go ahead.
And there were dwelling at Jerusalem Yehudims, devout men, and of every nation under heaven. Now when this was noised abroad, the multitude came together and were confounded, because that every man heard them speak in his own language.
Now, at the beginning of the church, these people have been spread everywhere. So this mass spreading into other areas has not happened yet. This is Acts chapter 2. So then the event that we're looking for, where the true Jews have been spread, is supposed to come after Acts chapter 2. Out of here, they're coming out of every nation. It's been a broad scattering. But that scattering is going to get way more interesting as time goes on. Go ahead.
And they were all amazed and marveled, saying one to another, Behold, are not all these which speak Galileans? And how hear we every man in our own language, wherein we were born? Parthians and Medes and Elamites, and the dwellers in Mesopotamia.
Wait a minute. This is the very doctrine that they keep pushing every time they try to talk about these other books. So if our people have spread to Mesopotamia, we have to then ask, if they have been in Mesopotamia so long that they speak that language, have they mingled Mesopotamian doctrine with the word of Yahweh? And then now people look at that and say that this is a reason we ought to deal with it. Interesting. Go ahead.
And in Judea and Cappadocia, in Pontus and Asia, Phrygia and Pamphylia, in Egypt and in parts of Libya about Cyrene, and strangers of Rome, Yehudims and proselytes, Cretes and Arabians, we do hear them speak in our language the wonderful works of Elohim.
Right. And we have to then consider if they were there to the point that they have adopted those languages, then they have had to deal with that for quite some time. Now, when we look at these extraneous writings that come from the Second Temple period, we have to ask a question: how do these writings have intimate details about things that have happened way before their time? We have to examine that. We have to also consider that when doctrine is either put forth or held back, who was in control? When we talk about these groups of Jews, the Herodians will call themselves Jews as well. Consider that. So when people say Jews, what Jews are they talking about? Herod's temple had an eagle placed on it. And the Gentiles are all about symbolism. Even the very stars that you watch on videos, watch as they throw out signs, because the Gentiles require them to do so. Herod put an eagle there so that all the Gentiles who visit know, don't pay no attention to what's happening. Rome is in control. You know it by watching their symbols. I want to read one more thing, and then let us see the conclusion of this matter. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 23. So now we're using this Mesopotamian literature to validate why we should deal with some of these extraneous writings. But we have to consider that there are some individuals who want to continue dealing with what they were already dealing with before. We witness it constantly in Christianity. There are things that we can't even find in the book. We to this day, I have not been able to find anything about watch night service. Yet every church does it. They got it from somewhere. And it sure ain't in the Bible. I done looked in every Bible I found. It ain't in there one of them. So we have some rituals that are coming from somewhere else. And people are not being honest about the origin of those rituals. I want you to start at verse 3.
Deuteronomy chapter 23 and verse 3. An Ammonite or Moabite shall not enter into the congregation of Yahweh, even to their 10th generation shall they not enter into the congregation of Yahweh forever. Because they met you not with bread and with water in the way when you came forth out of Egypt. And because they hired against you Balaam, the son of Beor of Pethor of Mesopotamia, to curse you.
So, when you go into Judges, one of the first punishments, or the first people to rule over us, was Mesopotamia. When you deal with this in Deuteronomy, the first group to curse us was of Mesopotamia. What do? We then turn around and we want to accept all the books and use the very first punishment of Mesopotamia and use their literature to validate this angel worship. Just so you have a background so that when these things come at you, you are equipped. That's all that we're going to do for today. Remember the Sabbath to keep it holy. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.